Today we're going to be talking about the importance on reflecting on your gameplays whenever you play any trading card game competitively. We're going to be talking about the benefits as well as just overall common sense values and benefits behind reflecting. So I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. False crack that like button, and let's get on to the topic. So before we begin, I'd like to thank you guys for checking out both the free run deck profile as well as the video on playtest rotation. I will be doing further elaboration on some of the other the rationale behind playtest rotation before I go into what is my playtest rotation in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, as well as One Piece. The reason why I wanted to take a break from that right now is because I wanted to talk about an important topic that I think a lot of people tend to forget. Or it's kind of like second nature to a lot of people that play competitively any TCG game, and that is the importance on reflecting on your games, both wins and losses, and how it's just an overall good practice to do, whether it be for your emotional well-being, your mental health, or even just your professional growth as someone who works in the workplace. Reflecting is actually a really good skill, and that's something that I've learned a long time ago when I was still in school, that reflecting, even though people think journaling is kind of passe or something that you have to set aside time, simply just going over it, making mental notes about how your day goes or how that game went, is really key in helping you kind of maintain a mindset of growth in any card game. Because I know, especially for games like Weiss Schwarz and Yu-Gi-Oh, where the game is relatively complicated in terms of the mechanics as well as the interactions, I think it is important to realize part of the learning process is you're gonna go through periods where it's gonna suck. You're gonna get your I know usually YouTube doesn't like this, but you're gonna get your ass kicked a lot in this game, and sometimes it will be either because you misplayed and set yourself up for it because you're still learning the deck, or it just could be your opponent outplayed you, or it just can be most people say, shit happens. So taking the time to even just debrief with yourself, or even with your teammates, your friends, or even just jotting down. I used to, during the pandemic, jot down every match that I had, looking at how I could have done the game better, what went well, what didn't go well, and just entirely look at it from a holistic point. People will go nitty and gritty and say that there's always going to be definitive best play, but that's actually, in my opinion, I believe that's subjective, and that's usually based on, because there's so many factors that go into whether the play turned out to be a good play or a bad play, and that is entirely on the board state, your opponent's deck state, and your current deck state, and even their hand. So you can make the best reads, but I do stress that you're never going to be perfect at it. It's always going to be where you're going to be off. For example, one of the things that I've noticed when I was playing Weiss Schwarz is that I got pretty good at predicting my opponent's brainstorms and when they'll cancel. And that's something that is a really good, if you can observe your opponent's deck and you observe how they play, you learn to pick up a kind of those things. And I even would try to figure out, okay, did that mill for the torch, was that a good idea? And think about, maybe if I held off or at least torched for 2, maybe I could have canceled that hit and not be put in a situation. So always thinking about all these kind of minor things is helpful, but I always stress the importance of making sure when you reflect, you're constantly just giving yourself grace. Because a lot of times, I think a lot of players don't realize this, is that we tend to think about things very black and white, and we got to recognize that there's actually, it's just Some cases it may be a black and white answer, but most cases it's going to be a gray area, and we have to kind of acknowledge that. And I always tell players, I even tell people that I coach, since I'm both TCG player and a former educator, I always tell people, like, it's okay to mess up, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to also just to have that shit happens. The most important thing is that you take the reflection as a means of what could I have done differently, and not kind of pound yourself out for it. And I think that's something that's true not only in trading card games. You can see that in fighting games. And like, one of the ways that I reflect is I often, and this was during the pandemic, I would record a lot of my gameplays, and there's some that I don't release on YouTube, mainly because I like to use that more for reflection. And if I do find a gameplay that's interesting, some people might say like, oh, games that you win. I'll sometimes even post games that I lost, but I usually post games where I felt like there was a lot of room to grow, or it was just really fun that I enjoyed that match. But like, for personal records, I usually try to record all my games, only because I want to study and figure out like what went wrong, what went well, kind of pinpoint where in the gameplay did I either do well or choked up, or could I have done a different play. So like, one of the benefits that I've kind of been doing, like, and I even do that with watching the ones that I've uploaded, a couple, like the many dozen videos that I've uploaded. I'll look back at it and see, okay, maybe if I did this play instead, this could have done differently. So I'm always like thinking about that. So that's one of the keys that I always tell people, like, if you want to progress in any game, whether it be Weiss Schwarz, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Digimon, One Piece, etc., you have to just be willing to reflect. I know a lot of people will say like, but what if I'm tilted? What if I'm angry? And I'm like, I would just say, recognize your feeling. You don't have to reflect right away. Even at Bushu, like major events, I know you can't record sometimes. Just jot down your note, like what happened, review it later, and then just sit down, or even just like take the time to recall it when you're away from the event, when you're either in a good mood or in a better mood if it's a really bad day, or if you're after. I would usually wait like a day or two before I reflect, or at least like just jot down notes to help me kind of recall what happened that day, so I can kind of just think about it carefully and see what went right, what went wrong. So I would constantly do that. And I used to journal a lot, where I would literally bring a journal and I jot down what's been going on at the tournaments. But now I've gotten to the point where I'll just make mental notes, and then I'll review, like will sometimes write it on my phone, like write it on my phone what happened, so I can kind of just keep just keep it brief, because depending on the venue, you might not even have enough time in between rounds to really sit down and actually digest what happened. And in some games you might not even be allowed to note take, so you just have to go for a general overview, so you have to think about all those as well. So like, I've seen a lot of people, like, that's why a lot of people like join, like, form teams when they play, when they do play tests, when they play competitively. It's not just for the solidarity, but it's also there to bounce ideas and bounce perspectives. And I'll probably discuss more about like the benefits of there's another topic that I will explore, but I don't want to bring it up now. Like, continuing on with this idea of reflecting, I find myself constantly like looking at it and looking at what goes down in my gameplay, and always trying to find the best parts about it. Like, my advice for anybody, and this is backed by a lot of research, like, if you want people to improve, you have to constantly, like, you focus on what went well first. When you reflect, like, you want to point out at least 3 to 5 things that went well. 3 to 5 things, like, simple, like because by doing that, you kind of condition the mind to start like focusing on the bright spots, and not constantly kind of bog yourself down by what went wrong. And even if it's the worst, like taking the small wins that happen is really good. And that helps with the growth mindset. Like you just got to constantly look for the best parts first. And then you pick 1 or 2 areas that could have been better in that game. Like you can't constantly, like the more you kind of like filter through the whole game, and the more you kind of just like nitpick every little play you do, the more you're just giving yourself like a checklist. You should keep your checklist of things to improve upon to maybe 2 to 3 points. Like you want more, celebrate more. You want to celebrate the progress that you made more than just focus on the areas of growth, because as many people know, like, and it's established a lot in neuroscience and in education, like our brains like tend to solidify as we get older, so it becomes harder to like just manually like change the way we think. So like if you want to do that, it has to be very gradual, and that requires, like, again, focusing on the bright spots so your brain doesn't get, so you don't personally go put yourself on the defense when you're trying to reflect. You want the reflection to be productive. So like that's the thing that I've always mentioned about the benefits of reflecting, is that you gotta, when I tell people when they reflect, you gotta stop focusing on so much of the negative. Like heck, I do this still in my everyday life. I'll focus on what's wrong, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people get depressed and frustrated in any endeavor, is we tend to focus on so much on the negatives and not on like the small gains that we make, and that oftentimes requires you to shift that perspective. And that's why I like teams, like working in groups whenever you do play testing or even engaging in any trading card game. Try to find your own little small team, like group of people that you can constantly talk to them, debrief, and even like vent. Like it's very helpful to do that, because sometimes like even like some people, like, oh, when they see that person venting or getting mad at an event, sometimes they just need that moment to be in their feelings before they can take the time to examine things objectively. I should know, I am like the king of tilt. If you ask my friends, I get tilted really bad. You can even kind of sometimes sense it in my, like, notice it in my videos. I will sometimes just enter full tilt, and you can tell by my tone. And it would take me, after the game, I would have to step aside and just let myself like de-tilt, decompress, and like that takes time. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, it's okay to be in your feelings in that moment, because especially if you're passionate about what you do and you love the game and you really just want to win, because you want to, again, everybody wants to win, but like, just, again, shit happens, life, like the game will just screw you sometimes, or you might make that one mistake that could cost you the game, and you probably don't catch it until later. And that's the one thing I always tell people. I caution everybody, and I always emphasize, you could be either your best friend or your worst enemy. Like, so like when you reflect, don't overly criticize yourself. Just make sure that when you do, always highlight the positives of that match first. Even if it's like small ones, like, hey, even if I lost, it was still kind of fun. I got to face people I actually like. You, like, focus on what went well, even with you as a player. Like, what did you do well, or even what went well throughout the match for you, or even for you. So it's like, and I think that's usually the key, is like you have to just strike the balance. And I think that's what separates a lot of competitive players with, like, the ones that are like the best in that emphasize excellence in the term of that mindset, and those that are just hyper competitive and are too much taking it seriously. So it requires you to both take it seriously and not seriously at the same time. So I've always been that's something I've always wanted to discuss as a video, like, how do you deal with tilting? And my answer is just, you be in your feelings and then reflect. Reflection is such a valuable tool, and that's something as a competitive player I realized was an important skill. And I feel like that's also an important skill in life, and sometimes you may not learn it in a classroom, you may not learn it from your friend, like from your everyday, like the people around you, but you might learn it from your hobbies, which is why I also stress having, like, in my personal circle, like having hobbies is a good thing, even if it is, like, for trading card games, a huge money suck. So, like, even if it costs you money, like the value in the connections and the value in the ability to learn skills like reflection, basic emotional regulation is really key, because sometimes people need to learn it by kind of just interacting with people, and that helps a lot. So I hope you guys like this little discussion. It's a short one about the importance of reflecting on your games. Like, I believe that this is a skill that obviously applies to every aspect of your life. I encourage you not only to reflect on your gameplay, reflect on your day. How's it going? And most importantly, give yourself a lot of grace. Give yourself that level of, hey, I know I'm not perfect, but hey, everything's gonna be all right. And that's always what I always remind myself. I have to remind myself, and I always remind other people. Like, and that's kind of, I guess, the benefit of therapy, is like you focus on those things, you have those avenues. I would even encourage competitive players, dude, I encourage everybody, reflect, and even if you need to, get therapy. It really helps, like just having somebody to talk to, help you reflect, because sometimes reflection might need to be involve another person or a group of people just to help you process what's going on and process what happened. It's key. So that's a little bit of kind of like a discussion that relates to both TCG and life. If you like these kind of videos, please leave a comment below, and if you guys want me to discuss certain topics, like whether it be about life or TCG, like attitudes or even just topics related, I would be happy to like sit down and like record another discussion video like this. But most importantly, I always want to remind you guys, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, stay on point, guys, and please don't let your day don't let the rest of your day, don't let what happened earlier ruin the rest of your day. Oh my god, I had to, sorry Callie, YGO, I had to steal that for you for a bit because this topic hits way too home for me. Anyway, stay on point, guys. Peace out.